It's time for Global Insight, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. Now, South Korea faces numerous economic challenges, hit with various domestic issues as well as global uncertainty that's doing very little to help the soaring levels of inflation and skyrocketing debt in the country. Now, the new South Korean President, Yoon has pledged to overcome crises with innovation and growth and is looking to bolster the nation's economic security, not only by launching domestic initiatives, but also by working with partners in the region to overcome shared challenges. Now, today we discuss how the new president will tackle economic issues here in the country. And joining us for this discussion is Hee-Dong, Professor of Strategy and International Business at Ewha Women's University. Very warm welcome to you, Professor, and thank you for joining us. So my first question to you is, well, in the past we saw keywords for particular economic initiatives such as income-led growth or inclusive growth, but what do you think is going to be the Yoon administration's approach to economic growth?
Well, as the Presidential Transition Committee has declared on May 3rd, the major principle in economy is on the private sectors. So this principle can be called as liberal economy, who puts more emphasis on private sectors, on shackled from the public momentum, such as income, the led growth of Moon Jae-in government. So this principle has existed for a long time, such as Frederick, the Hayek or Milton Friedman since the late 19th century. The major feature of this principle is they try to minimize the intervention of the government, right? Even though they may not control the size of the government. So this is a big change in terms of the economic principle of this new government.
Of course, and the new president has emphasized the importance of liberal democracy and also market economy as well. So, yes, we can expect to see very market-friendly policies coming our way. But, well, President Yoon also appointed Kim So-young, a professor of economics at Seoul National University, to head one of the most important financial institutions in the country. What do you make of her appointment, and what do you think this means for South Korea's private sector?
Well, first of all, we should be aware that President Moon has appointed Chu Kyung-ho as the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance. He is also well known for his very liberal approach to economic problems. And Kim So-young, who is the professor at the economic department in SNU, he badly blamed about the income-led growth of Moon Jae-in government, because he also has a principle and philosophy in the liberal economy. And why this news has attracted a lot of attention from us, because the Financial Services Commission is the second most influential economic institution in Korea, only after the Ministry of Economy and Finance. Because this institution, designs and sets the strategies of all the major economic and financial activities. And if you have a new government, right, the new elected used to appoint the chairperson first, and then chairperson used to appoint a vice chairperson. But this time, and the President Moon has appointed the vice chairman first, Professor Kim So-young, because President Yoon wants to renovate the financial sectors from the initiatives and ideas in the private sector. So again, Kim So-young has not worked for the government, the ministries or government institutions at all, because he has been the professor in the universities. So President Moon expects that all these brand new innovative ideas should come from private sectors, and all these brand new ideas should be reflected in the public sector. But I do believe that the chairman of this Financial Services Commission will be appointed from the public sector for the sake of consistency and integrity of the strategies and the philosophies of this economic institution, though. And besides, this is not the first time for the new government to appoint any private person as the vice chairman. Lee Myung-bak government, he also appointed the Lee Chang-yong, who is now the governor of BOK, as the vice chairman of the same institution.
President Yoon is showing a lot of enthusiasm towards his upcoming meeting with US President Biden. And he said that he's going to be discussing how his government can contribute to the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which the US Commerce Secretary announced that it's going to launch in Japan early next week with Mr. Biden's trip there. So the IPEF is supposed to be America's way of regaining its footing in the Asia-Pacific market after previous President Trump walked away from the now Japan-led CPTPP. But there has been criticism, Professor, that the IPEF has been lacking in detail so far and offers little for allies in Asia. Well, what kind of developments or discussions do you expect to see as Mr. Biden discusses this plan with the leaders of Seoul and Tokyo?
Well, first of all, we should be aware that President Biden has a very different philosophy in dealing with China compared to Donald Trump. Because Trump has been very aggressive because he preferred to, deface with the China one-to-one, face-to-face. Whereas Biden wants to organize alliances, right, in dealing with the Chinese risks of China's problems. So, I mean, these days, the American government has, reminded of all the brand new, the value alliances, such as Quad, G7, G10, D10, T12, etc. So Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, is it's kind of brand new activity whose principle traces the announcement of B3W, standing for the Build Back a Better World. This is a project worthy of $40 trillion declared last year in June, because the American government wants to counteract against the Chinese government One Belt and One Road, because this project proposed to provide and support about $40 trillion to build up new infrastructures in the less developed countries. I mean, this project precisely, right, coincides with the project of One Belt and One Road. I think IPEF is more practical or more manifested the movement, right, in following the announcement of B3W. Well, we can think about CPTPP as very similar international activities of the United States, but CPTPP is FTA that controls over tariff and also, all the items for the international trade. But the major limitation of CPTPP from the standpoint of the American government to deal with China is China has applied for the membership of the CPTPP last year in September. So I don't think a CPTPP can be a major driver or a vehicle for American government to deal with or countermeasure the Chinese threat. So that's why the Biden, on the way to visit Japan to talk about the Quad, he visited Korea, and probably very strongly persuade the President Yoon to join the IPEF, which is economic alliances, for the sake of American, dominance over Chinese threat.
Well, how do you think South Korea could really contribute to the IPEF and also benefit from it, as it will be dealing with a wide range of very important economic areas for South Korea, such as semiconductors, supply chains, infrastructure? What can we contribute and also benefit from?
Well, we can think about many diverse agenda for the summit. The first one is economic boosting. I mean, the American government has declared that their domestic economy is cruising very well. In March, in April, the consumer price index, I think, increased almost by 8.5 or 8.3%, which is the largest in the last 40 years. But they may be concerned that, the deflation policy may somehow deter the employment rate. So they need to continue to grow their international trade, for the sake of maintaining very handsome and robust employment rate. And digital economy has surfaced major infrastructures for the fourth, industrial revolution. And all the major the American companies in the world, for the sake of global economy. and decarbonization and clean energy and semiconductors. There are many, many agendas to discuss with Korea. And Korea, has taken up one of very top players in international trade and also particularly in the high-tech the market. That's why the White House invited Samsung Electronics CEO Yoon several times to the United States to discuss over the strategies of Samsung Electronics in terms of locating factory lines and availability of supply chains for the American the electronic manufacturers. So I do believe that the United States has regarded Korea as a major partner, particularly for the high-tech industry, and in terms of the international politics or national securities or the international the securities. Korea is located in very, very sensitive and very, very critical area. So that should be another very critical issue as an agenda for this summit. Yes, there are many, many issues and the contributions that Korea can make and contribute to the plans of the government of the United States.
And indeed, President Biden is expected to meet with the heads of South Korea's biggest chaebols or family-owned conglomerates. These include Samsung, Hyundai, SK and LG. And he's expected to ask for even greater investment in the US. So, what kinds of opportunities do you see for collaboration?
Well, let me elaborate more about the high-tech industries. High-tech is actually about two major streams. The first one is the computer industry, such as the semiconductors and the AIs, etc., and then the wireless communications. And the second major stream for the high-tech is on biotech, which was triggered and spurred by the COVID-19. So you can think about the digital healthcare services and all the bio and pharmaceutical industries. And of course, the President Biden may persuade the Korean chaebols to invest more in the US, but also he may try to advise the Korean chaebols to withdraw from China in terms of manufacturing facilities and all the economic investment in that country. So, there should be some limits for the government discussions and negotiations. In that case, probably some government may try to contact directly the owners or CEOs of private companies, as they did for the Samsung Electronics CEO Yoon last year. So that this is very abrupt and very influential discussions with the owners or CEOs of the chaebol, because they want to speed up the investment in economic activities or the cooperations between two countries.
And in regards to that, handling this very sensitive balance between Washington and Beijing, with China, of course, still being very much South Korea's largest trading partner, do you see the Yoon administration actually taking steps away from the Chinese market, or do you think he's going to have to really try and retain that careful balance there?
Well, traditionally, the Korean government has taken two different, the tracks simultaneously: economy with China and the national security with the U.S. So that two-track, double-track policy has been dominant, has been a very archaic approach for the Korean government. But somehow, particularly in the governance. All the national security risks and economic risks have increased substantially. So many experts argue that Korean government may not or cannot maintain the same approach to deal with the China and the United States in that way. So, and besides, the President Moon has very favorite principles towards and very close to the liberal economy or liberalists. So I do believe that President Moon may move steps very closer to the United States. But absolutely, China is number one, the biggest partner for our export, and the Korean economy cannot survive without any export initiative. But this is a big challenge. This challenge is getting bigger and bigger. So the President Yoon needs to figure out other strategies to maintain or to increase our export to China, there are many different ways in direct export, but also indirect export to China. But also, President Yoon may figure, I mean, it's the trade-off between the negative impacts on the export to China and also positive effect of the export to the United States. Well, the economy runs on the figures, runs on our calculation. So let's see what happens. But absolutely, this government may trade the balance between the Chinese market and also the cooperation with the American markets.
Well, it's a dilemma that many countries are facing at the moment. And, well, lastly, before we let you go, Professor, now, Yoon is aiming to push through his very first supplementary budget, first of his administration, the second of this year. And his administration wasn't afraid to go very big with the budget bill, making it the biggest in history. Now, what kinds of moves do we need to see on the monetary side now in terms of handling spiking inflation and interest rates?
Well, we should admit that our economy is somehow in a very, very bad situation. As for the price index, as I already said, the CPI, Consumer Price Index, has risen about 4.8% in April and 4.1% in March. I mean, these figures are the highest in the last 11 or 13 years. As for the interest rate, I mean, the current interest rate, the base interest is up to 1.25, which is even 0.5% higher than the base rate of the United States. As for the exchange rate, which is very, very serious for our export and trade transactions, well, this year, our exchange rate has increased by 6.5%, whereas the import prices have increased by 35% in this single year. That means our export companies are really, really struggling very badly. In other words, if our exchange rate rises up, well, the export price will be reduced and may help our export, but our import price will increase. The problem is the impact of the increased exchange rate making more significant impact on the rise of import prices that may damage the profitability of export companies. While reflecting this trend, the trade balance is in deficit this year, up to $9.9 billion. But at the same time last year, our trade balance was $7.9 billion of profit. So, I mean, that's why the Chu Kyung-ho and Lee Chang-myung had a meeting, a couple of days ago to exchange their communications and to propose new policy mix. Well, the May 13, Chu Kyung-ho has, upheld about $55 billion as a revised supplementary budget, which is the largest in Korean history. But last year, the government also proposed $60 billion through 4 times. And 2 years ago, the government asked for $45 billion through the 2 times. So we should say that as of now, the new government has, upheld $70 billion as revised supplementary budget. What is usage of that large amount? But first of all, they need to boost the economy by supporting small and medium-sized enterprises because they are the major victims of COVID-19 for the past couple of years. And they declared that about 70% of this the budget will be poured and input to boost up the lackluster performances of small and the medium-sized enterprises. And besides, they invest a lot of money to support the high-tech industry, which has become the major enabler and driver for our export for the past couple of years. And the recovery of the nuclear, the facilities and nuclear-based the factory lines, that is another, the outlet for the spending of the revised supplementary budget. So these are the major sources to boost up the economic problems.
Professor Yang Hee-Dong, Professor of Strategy and International Business at Ewha Women's University. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. Have a good day.